First thing on the agenda is our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next is the roll call.
Okay. Committee member Josh Marvin, absent. Committee member Matthew Bechtel.
Here.
Committee member Lena Tucker.
Present.
Committee chair Wally Shreves, absent. Committee member Bob Dalton.
Here.
Committee member Nancy Patton.
Here.
And committee member Deborah Sue Northern.
Okay.
She's muted.
Can she hear us?
Deborah, can you hear us?
I think you did. Deborah, can you hear us? We heard her a little bit ago. Deborah. Yeah. I don't know if she was. Deborah, can you hear us? We heard her a little bit ago.
Can you hear us? We can't hear her.
No, I'm coming.
Oh, there she is.
Hello?
Oh.
Hey,
we got
Deborah, can you hear us? We've
No.
been trying to talk to you. So we muted you for a bit because you had a lot of background noise, but I'm going to talk into the microphone again and let me see if you can hear us, okay?
She can hear us.
Can you hear us?
She's acknowledging you.
No, she's hearing on the phone.
Oh.
Can you hear us on the?
No, I don't. It might be something on my end. I'm not sure.
Because we can hear you now. So look at yours and see if you have your volume on your computer.
Okay, the volume. There we go. That's what I needed to do. Okay. Yes, it is. It's at 33. That's probably too loud there.
Okay, give me a second and I'll talk into the microphone again, okay?
Oh, I hear you now. But wait, maybe that's because it's on the phone. Okay, try it again.
Okay, can you hear me on the computer?
Yes, I do now.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to hang up the phone.
Okay.
The next thing on the agenda is time reports. Anybody having time reports they need to turn in? See that one? So.
I think we're all good for harvest fair.
Okay.
Got all the harvest fair reports?
Yes. As far as, no, I will check on them and make sure. So, but I will check and I'll send you guys everything. I know I have a little bit of it.
Okay. Next item, public comment. Is anyone out there that would like to make a comment to the Parks Board this morning? I believe we do not have any. So, which brings us really quickly down to new business, the Master Parks Plan presentation. So you're on.
Just by way of introduction, as you are aware, we've been going through the process for updating our Parks Master Plan, and the firm from Cameron MacArthur has been working hard at this, and we're very happy to have their assistance. We've already had a bunch of public outreach at various events and some surveys, and so they're well on their way, but we're at the point now to start the public meeting aspect of it. So just to introduce Elizabeth and Colin, if you would like to tell us a little bit about yourselves to get started, and then I'll just turn it right over to you.
My name is Elizabeth Otto. I'm a landscape architect.
You're good.
Nice. Hopefully this is better. Great. I'm Elizabeth Otto. I'm a landscape architect at Cameron McCarthy. I'm based in Portland. Colin's here with me today as well. I'll let him say a few words.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I'm Colin MacArthur, principal planner with Cameron McCarthy. I'm based in Eugene, and I direct our planning practice. We have offices, our headquarters are in Eugene, but we have offices in Portland and Bend. Park system planning is one of our core services that our firm performs. We do a couple of these, 2 or 3 of these a year. Last year, we were active in working in the communities of Harrisburg, Sisters, and White Salmon, Washington, to get their park system plans either updated or to prepare a new plan, as in the case of White Salmon. And this year, we're working in Sweet Home, Olalla, and the community of Chilcoin, north of Klamath Falls. This process is farthest along, and we're happy to report on progress for the process. We're about a third of the way through. We've completed the inventory, community profile, a good portion of our community outreach and involvement approach, and I think this is a good opportunity to bring the Parks and Tree Board up to speed and begin to hear more of your input on the process. And then we'll be coming back to the Parks Board a couple more times to report on progress. And with that, that's kind of an overview of our presentation. I'll turn it over to Liz to get into the details.
You know, if it says I'm sharing my screen, but I'm not positive if I need permission, maybe. Okay, let me try again. It does, yeah. Let me stop sharing again. Maybe I'll just let me try the window real quick. Actually. Oh. I think it's displaying. They're a different computer. I should just remove from.
Yeah, you can either.
Okay.
You want to send it to me real quick? I can
Yeah.
pull it up.
Okay. Great.
We may have it on the computer already.
Okay. Oh, here, I'll email it. Email should go for a minute.
Deborah, just so you know, we're just trying to get the technology up, so that's why you're not hearing anything for a minute.
Maybe because, yeah, Deborah's there. I'm getting caught up on my time sheet. So when we cut Ivy Hall, we started at maybe
Yeah, we don't have that many slides.
Okay. I think we should be good. Okay, yeah, that's fine. All right. Like Colin mentioned, I'm going to give an overview of where we are in the process of the park plan. Next slide, please. So I'll review just the park planning process for park system plans in general, work the city has accomplished, local demographics that we've reviewed, the inventory we've created of the park system, and our community outreach process. And then we would love to have some Q&A at the end and discussion. Next slide, please. All right. So park system plans are critical for a few reasons. They revisit the vision for the park system. They also identify community need. And then the park plan produces recommendations, which include projects and associated funding, and as well as prioritizing those projects. So the process includes several different phases. Earlier this year, we began the project by evaluating the existing park system and taking inventory of the facilities before reviewing census data and developing a community profile. We also began the outreach process earlier this year, doing events in the summer and fall. Later in the process, which will be early next year, we will develop goals and recommendations based on our findings and then move into documentation and adoption of the plan in late spring, early summer. Next slide. And this just illustrates a little bit of where we've been and what we're currently working on. We're wrapping up community outreach. We recently finished the community profile and we'll move into the needs assessment soon. Next slide. And in our inventory, so far we just have documented improvements the city has also made, such as the BMX improvements, many improvements to Sankey Park, also the acquisition of the quarry site. Next slide. In the community profile, we review a number of different census data, including population and growth, age and race of residents. In the last 10 years, the population of Sweet Home has grown, and that's expected to continue in the next 20 years. The age of residents is predominantly adults and older adults. And next slide. And also the population of Sweet Home is diversifying. In the last 10 years, there has been growth in the number of residents that identifies 2 or more races. Also, Black and Hispanic and Latino residents have increased. Next slide. Great. As part of our process, we've inventoried the existing park system based on National Park and Recreation standards. That includes identifying developed facilities. We've noted multiple neighborhood parks, 1 community park, special use and natural area parks, and then we've also identified undeveloped parkland. There are also other park and recreation facilities in the area that support residents that are not necessarily owned or operated by the city. Next slide. Okay, great. And as part of the inventory, we also identify how many acres have been developed and then how many acres are available to develop in the future. So there's almost 90 acres of developed parkland in the city, and then quite a bit more of undeveloped land that's potentially or that's available to develop in the future. And we want to just touch on the community outreach process that we've done. It includes several different methods. One is the stakeholder interviews, and that included talking to a variety of residents that serve on city committees, as well as seniors, members of the local business community, city staff, and then also hearing from youth perspectives. We host pop-up events as well as part of our process. We held 2 events this summer and fall. One was at the summer reading program at Sankey Park, as well as the Harvest Festival. And then we launched an online survey this fall, and that is still in progress. All right, so I was going to touch on the findings that we have from the stakeholder interviews and the pop-up events. In our interviews, we heard several themes between the stakeholders. One was park improvements, so this would just be updating current facilities. We also heard an interest in increasing the number of parks and the maintenance of parks in the system. And then accessibility and city communications also came up as interests or priorities for people. Okay, our first pop-up event was at the summer reading program, and we heard findings from about 30 people. at the event, and we asked several different questions. One was which amenities in parks are most important to them or their households. We heard that water play, playgrounds, trails, and water recreation were most important. And at the Harvest Festival, we heard from about 150 people, and there was overlap in the most important amenities to people. So water play, water recreation, and trails were overlapped with what we heard at the summer reading program. But we also heard that mountain biking trails and a bike park were important to us. And so we asked several other questions to participants, including hearing their ideas for future development at Quarry Park, which included trails, campgrounds, playgrounds, water fountain, or bike trails or dog park. We asked individuals if they could identify areas that are in need of parks in town, and they overwhelmingly identified the east side of town as an area that needs parks. Feeling unsafe or unwelcome or a lack of facilities were a couple barriers that individuals mentioned that prevent them or deter them from accessing parks in the system. We also asked for their input on what they believe the priorities are for the park system in the next 10 years. They identified updating existing facilities as well as building new parks in neighborhoods in need as two priorities. So we have a couple discussion questions, but I want to pause and listen to any questions you have for us first. Or do you want? Oh.
No, you go back to the you go back to the inventory map slide that helps see where parks are distributed.
Everything is here.
Not that you had a question.
Well, I wasn't sure if this was the right time to ask the questions because I was jogging down a lot of things, but I think part of it is your process. Of course, this is kind of the early stages of this process. So as time evolves, I can see probably some of my questions being answered because it was like your outreach, you know, you've outreached to what, 100 and you said 170 somewhere in there. Obviously, you're going to go out and try to capture a bigger audience to that, or is I see head nods, but
Oh, yeah, it's still on. Okay. Yes, that is correct. We are still in the process of doing an online survey, and we're hoping to reach a lot of individuals through that, particularly people that aren't able to attend in-person events or weren't included in the stakeholder group.
then the other question I had was, as this thing evolves, obviously you're going to try to drill down specific items that you're suggesting. These are the priorities, like the water splash. And how do you, maybe it isn't at this level, how do you take into effect the impact for the city departments that are going to have to increase their sizes as well to accommodate this? And Angela, I don't know how to, if that's the right question to be asking, but as I see parks expanding, Public Works has got a pretty good crew, but it's going to take a larger impact. So definitely we can say we have a park, but there's other parts of that that's underlying that we don't see, you know, such as that.
It's a fair question, and of necessity, master plans like this need to be aspirational, but at the same time pragmatic. I believe we've talked about funding recommendations and things like that that will be included in the master plan.
Okay.
But ultimately, it will be a matter of what does the community have the stomach to pay for, and what means do we find to pay for those things. So I think we have options. Certainly, our raised system development charges is going to help. As new development comes in, it will help pay for some of these expansions, which is an appropriate thing. And this should work hand in hand with those SDCs, because all the projects that are identified in here, we will then take and add to the capital projects list for the system development charges, and it would be used for justification for adjusting those charges in the future. So
Okay.
there's some give and take going on.
Yeah, that answers what I was really kind of trying to go after was
And
that
also, excuse me, also to loop back to the outreach, and they talked about the online survey. So if you all would like to spread the word about that also, it's on our website, and there's a link and there's a path for people to go. And I know we've advertised it a little bit, but we could use probably a little bit more push and I can send that link to you guys so you
Okay.
have that directly.
Yeah, because when she said online survey, like what online survey?
Yeah. I'll send the
Not
link
that
to-
I don't
I'll send the
read, I
link
do
to you
read, Dave.
directly. Yeah.
And please tell as many people as you know. We have been trouble getting traction with people paying attention to that. So
Yeah.
we're trying to direct as many people and have extended the time for that survey.
Yeah, that's always a challenge, I think, with any survey you're out there trying to do is how do you capture your audience, and is it on Facebook? Well, we don't do Facebook, but, and we don't get the newspaper. I mean, it's always a challenge, like put an ad in the tell and sell local, go see this thing. So grocery bags would probably be the best. We've got a lot of those out there, so I appreciate that.
So. I have a question. There we go. So when you did the questions and that they came up with the water play splash pad 24 and the was that mainly for a certain park, or what was their comments about that? Now you're off.
I don't know. I don't normally use microphones. Let's see. The interest in water play was general, just broad, like more opportunities to take children to play with water. So they didn't identify necessarily any specific park aside from it came up when we asked about the Quarry Park site.
Okay. And then the playground, I know, because I keep thinking back, we have, lots of stuff at Sankey Park, but that was the next number one thing that they said was children's playground. So what parks were they talking about? Is that just general?
Yeah, I think it's families just being interested in having different parks to take children, for variety. But another, like associated idea that came up with that was being able to walk to parks. So just having them closer to where they live.
And I liked it also how you guys talked about, and we've talked about it in here before, the east end of town. Yeah, definitely need parks down there.
Yeah, I believe that was the only location or, area that people identified parks. So there was some strong consensus there to support what you're describing. Yeah.
Because I believe, Laura, didn't you bring it up for the population? You have to have a park.
Within a certain distance so that people work. I think the goal, one of the goals with this plan is to kind of have a standard of how far should someone have to walk to be able to get to a park. And I think that's something that we'd like to see developed to get general ideas of where we want to acquire land for those future parks, certainly. And those are the areas of major growth is the east end of town.
So with when she said, I think you have 90 acres available for parks. Is that part of it out there?
Our current parks total 90 acres, but keep in mind that a good portion of that is Hobart, which is a natural area that's not the kind of park that people visit for their kids to play in.
Okay. So do we own property out the east end of town?
No, but that would be part of the acquisition process. One of the I mean, there's a number of, we could certainly go out and purchase land in identified areas. One of the things I like though is the idea of if there is a development coming in, that development dedicating some land to the city, and in exchange the city would give waivers for their parks SDCs or something like that.
Yep.
That would be great if a developer wanted to take that option that way, and frankly they'd be smart to, because that way the park would be located in their neighborhood that they built, and it's a selling point. But there's other options for acquiring land. One option of land that we do own is the city has a it's a light manufacturing building that is at 40, is it 42nd or 43rd? Yeah, the end of 42nd on the north side of Main Street. There's a fairly large piece of land. It's all forested right now, but there's a 10,000 square foot building on that property, but there's room to spare. And one of the things that's been discussed is perhaps taking a corner of that property and making a neighborhood park out of it, which there are some neighborhoods surrounding it. But that's the only specific property that we own in that general area that could be used for parks.
I can keep finding questions, so you guys better just speak up.
Was there a large percentage or ratio of older people participating in the surveys? So if it was done at the library reading in the park, I think that was more geared for the children and younger families. And I think that shows with the water play being like overwhelmingly at the top.
Yeah, so we did include a stakeholder from the senior center. And so in those findings, we identified trails and accessibility as two of the key themes or findings. And those tend to be some of the most important interests for older adults. So I do think that their perspective was represented within the stakeholder findings. But you're right in terms of the pop-up events where participants were children or adults. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I think one of the things when we look at park trails and that, especially paved trails, when you think of older adults, and Dave and I are getting there, but okay. But when you think of ADA access is a thing for a lot of people, that do have wheelchairs or walkers or, walk with some sort of assistance, then that kind of plays into it. But I know my wife and I, we walk almost every day by Sankey Park, and I've really noticed a lot of the upper part that we haven't really developed a lot being used by people that have dogs. They're really using that upper part, walking dogs, and it's a small area, but I sure see it being used a lot for that. So, yeah, the splash. I mean, some of the things too I look on as the priorities is, we're a very seasonal area, and you think of a splash park, boy, you might squeeze in a couple months out of the year to use a splash park. So I think when we look at priorities for us as a board, to take into consideration those considerations, how well is it going to be used, by how many, and for how long.
So I have a question, I guess back to the city. We used to have that wading pool over there by the Girl Scout. So I know it was filled in, and who wants to talk about that? Trask, Lair? So that was kind of like it wasn't a splash pad, but that was, why did we fill it in? And
Well, if I may, that was there.
Right.
But Bob, you're right. You're going to get that for 3 months, and the rest of the time it's going to be not used. So we'd have to decide whether or not we want to put that in that position rather than something that. Would it be great to have? Yeah, but I don't think it would be used that much. But that's just me. I don't. But you guys make the call, and then we'll see if the council wants to do that. But we're talking about a pretty long period of time to get this stuff done, obviously. And we've been pretty blessed with some of the finances to be able to do what we've done and what we can do. Yeah. So. And after the first of the year, I think would be good for you folks to get together and say what priority you want to make and put it in a list so we can do some stuff when we start. We can do this or this, because some of them's going to be expensive as the dickens. So I think that would help us a lot, you folks a lot, and it would be good for the city. And we've already done a lot. You guys have done a really good job. So we just need to make sure we get our priorities in line so that, and this will help, these folks will help us make those calls.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're on the right track. We're on the right track, and so it's been pretty good. So anyway.
Yeah, and I don't want us to forget our other commitments or priorities that we've identified. You know, I mean, these are definitely, I mean, this is all good stuff. The other thing is a question maybe to Blair or this group over here, Blair, is when you put in a system like a splash park, is there a liability with having those sort of applications to a park?
There's chance in everything, but there is in the state of Oregon something referred to as recreational immunity. And so when it comes to our parks, if people are coming onto our parks to recreate, the way the law is written in the courts, the way the courts interpret it is that if you're coming on that property that's been offered for recreation to recreate, then you are responsible for yourself and so we are somewhat protected. Now that doesn't mean we're in every way protected, but certainly there's some protection there. When it comes to splash pads and the technology that they have and the way they're built, at least the modern ones, there's a major difference between those and wading pools that you might have had a long time ago. These are not designed to have collected pools of water. Mm-hmm. They are designed to splash and spray, and then everything drains. And so there's no likelihood of drowning because there's no pool of water for a child to be able to drown in, and so that makes them inherently much safer. So really, from what I understand, that as long as your water quality is not going to have disease in it, you're really fine. There's not really anything that can happen. And the way they're built, they tend to be not slippery. Using rougher concrete surface to ensure that people aren't going to slide around when it's wet and that kind of thing.
Thanks,
they have one in Corvallis, right along the river, and then our son lives in Scotts Valley up in Clackamas. They have one up there. The water just you stand on it, water comes up, water goes down. They scream.
Yeah, I don't want to dwell too much on,
right.
on the splash pad just because it's one of many potential amenities we can consider. But when we did, actually, we've done Sisters Plan twice now. When we did their plan in 2012, the first project to come out of that was a neighborhood park splash pad and amphitheater that's at First Street Park. And Sisters has a little more extreme climate than Sweet Home, and they used it as a multi-purpose space. And so there's examples like that. There's a park near where I live in Eugene where the splash pad is also a basketball court. And so during the winter months, they can use it as a basketball court. So there's potential there. We do have to address the health of risks of water, and Blair did a good job addressing liability, but it's feasible. We just have to determine if that's one of your top priorities or not.
I didn't know you could do
through
both.
This process.
Cool.
Thank you. Any more questions?
So tell us about Quarry Park.
So Quarry Park, we haven't got into recommendations yet. So some of our high-level observations and as some of our next steps will be level of service analysis and comparing where Sweet Home stands to other similar sized communities around the nation. We use National Park and Recreation standards. And I expect what we'll find is that Sweet Home has a adequate supply of park land, and part of that is because of the size of things like Quarry Park and Hobart Park. Although we would like to see either a neighborhood park or a community park within walking distance of most residences, and that's the walking distance is generally defined as a quarter mile. And that's where, if you look at this map, you can see there's just not much on the east side in between Hobart Park and the Army Corps facilities along Foster Reservoir. So the east side is underserved. The west side is could be well served, but we note that several of those parks are minimally developed or underdeveloped, and they could support more facilities, with Sankey Park being probably your most developed park. And then Quarry Park has a lot of potential, particularly for passive rec, trails, community events, maybe the future home of festivals. We're not yet sure how much of that community park, neighborhood park function it can provide, or if it's more of a special use facility. So we're currently evaluating Quarry Park for that potential, but I think we will be focusing some on acquisition and development on the east side. How can we increase level of service over there, and then how can we improve parks on the west side? So, but as we move forward, Quarry Park being one of your most impressive assets, there will be a lot of focus on that throughout the process.
Did you, by chance, did you get a picture of the plan that we put for Quarry Park? There is one out there.
Yeah, Blair sent us all the background for that.
so-
So yeah, we're working with that as the basis, and we'll likely suggest refinements, and then we can move all of those recommendations into the plan, and then turn them into capital projects, and then go through the process of prioritization and phasing.
Yeah, and our city manager is very aggressive. And she, in a good way,
I
it's not a
know,
bad thing.
I love her.
When she wants something done,
Yeah.
she usually gets it pretty
Yeah.
much done, and we want to make that a park.
Yeah.
Park for camping this next fall and summer.
Oh yeah, we had a conversation with her at our last meeting about ensuring that our capital improvement plan is ready by the time the city starts the budgeting process. And we think there's alignment there. We'll have a draft when you're going through that process, so that you can consider all these projects. And we'll need some help from the Parks Board in prioritizing what the projects come first.
Well, I was going to say, because when the Jamboree was here, we had places for people to park down there for the Jamboree thing, and it's a big deal for us, and it's going to be great.
Okay.
Have you been down there at all?
Yes.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, Blair gave us a good tour of that facility when we were here looking at all the facilities. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
What is, how do you define a nature playground? I see it got a fair amount of votes. What's a nature playground?
So nature or natural playgrounds typically involve a little bit more like natural materials or structures that are intended to mimic natural materials. So you might see wood or stone, things like that. Kind of on the other end of things, to compare it to, traditional playgrounds might have brighter colors. They might be the more plastic or metal. There's kind of a spectrum though in between, so there are different ways that you could create a natural park or introduce natural elements.
So I know that I live on Foothills, which runs into Hobart Park. So basically, I know it can't have rest areas and stuff like that. It's a nature park. But is there anything else you guys think that we should do there?
Yeah, I think there's more potential there. We were aware of the prior master plan for Hobart Park, and we've been studying that. It's been partially developed for trails. We think there's definitely more opportunity for more passive rec amenities like trails, viewpoints, benches, wildlife observation, maybe some interpretive educational materials around native plants. We still see it being a nature area parks, maybe not appropriate for like your children's playground or
Right.
a natural area, but you do need facilities like that in your community. You need natural areas and open space, just like you need children's playgrounds and other active uses. So we see that functioning as an important natural area park for your community.
And parking and bathrooms could
Yes.
certainly be put in.
Access, yeah, better access, parking, bathrooms. Yeah.
They could go to your house and my house.
I mean, I really wouldn't mind coming out my backyard.
He's it
to-
right back to it too, is the next street.
Yeah.
So where are we at on time? We have a couple questions for you. I think we've covered much of our content, but I wanted to make sure we heard perspectives from each of the park board members on key issues and priorities. So Blair, would you mind, or Angela, moving ahead? There's a couple questions at the end of our presentation. Yeah, let's run through these.
So one question is just, is there any key information or just background knowledge that you have in the community about park improvements or anything about the park system that we haven't identified in either the inventory or any of the outreach we've done?
This is sort of is there anything we should know before we start making recommendations?
I think those guys probably told you everything you need to know.
Yeah. Blair did an amazing job downloading all the history and background for us. And this is we already have a plan. This is an update, so you have a good foundation to work from.
I think it kind of goes back to what you had talked about earlier about the natural. She had a question about natural. When I think of parks, is how well they blend in with our community and our history here. So I think that's one of the things we've talked about when we were looking at replacing the bandstand and pavilion, is making sure that it aesthetically fits. And I think that's we don't want a bank looking something sitting out in the middle of a. So the more I think we can incorporate that sort of thought. I know when I was in Germany and through Europe and some of those countries, it was interesting to see that parks was really designed around more of the wood type structures and things that fit. You didn't see a lot of real I mean, we saw the splash pads and things like that, but if there was a wooded area, everything there was kind of built into the theme. So I think some thought to that. I mean, Sankey Park, I think we've done a good job of blending the structures and the playground equipment, everything along that sort of a setting. So that would be one thing I would think. There's a lot of pride in this community around our logging history and our pioneers and things like that. So I could see that would mean a lot. Not saying we can't be more modern at times too, but I think that would be a key take, I would think.
So one thing, there's a comment about the bigger skate park. Well, it's being loaned to us by the school district, correct?
Well, it is on property owned by the school district, and to be honest, I've never had conversations with them on. I know we cooperate with them, but I don't think that there's. I don't know to what degree, who's taking care of what there. I think it's mostly the school district. Angela, do you know by chance how much our guys are maintaining things at the skate park? I don't think we are doing that much. I think it's mostly the school.
I know
district.
that there's a new fence up.
Yeah.
School district property.
Mhm.
So I don't know if our guys or they work with Josh from the school district. That would be probably a dominant person.
Yeah. So it's, I think certainly the school district and the city have an improving relationship. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there with the school district owning as much property as they do, controlling as much property as they do, that we can, there is a lot of room for cooperation for recreation. But for the skate park, it's mostly them. Similarly with the Army Corps, Andrew Wiley Park, Lakeshore Park, Shea Point, those are areas that the county maintains, and the discussions have been with the county and with the Army Corps have been centered on the city taking a larger role in some of those areas. And so those are certainly places that we want to include within our overall plan. Who actually owns it, I guess, is not necessarily important as long as we all agree on what they're for.
Right.
and make those amenities available to the public.
I just noticed there was 6 comments about a bigger skate park. So that's all. I just,
Yeah, I think that's expected. I think a lot of young families and youth we're hearing from, we're interested in those facilities. And that doesn't necessarily mean we expand or improve that one. It could be that we look at another site for a new skate park.
And maybe just to add that, like, in the context of everyone we talked to, it wasn't the most important
Right.
thing, or yeah, but still important.
One
yeah.
thing back to Bob's comments about the history of the community and respecting that, I think that really plays in also with some of the community partners that we'd like to work with. I'm thinking of a lot of the timber companies and areas where we would like to have trails. And so I think that's, if there's anything I do now, it would be to do more outreach with CTC and others because a lot of the trail improvements that we're going to want to have, and a lot of the areas where we might want to have trails are those privately owned timberlands. And so I think I hope we can get a lot more cooperation going, and perhaps use our parks as a showcase for that, for the industry, mainly because of our history and because we want to continue to promote responsible forest products.
Well, that's a good point, because I know for our last fundraising drive, I worked with Cascade Timber, and it wasn't so much about the dollar. It was more about using their natural resources. I mean, if we needed a load of logs for a project, they would have brought a load of logs for a project. If we needed an excavator for a project, they would be glad to that in-kind donation. So I think that's where I go back to the history a little bit, that there's a big support group out there like that that's kind of left untapped, that I think would be a major player in how we develop our parks. And I've lived here my whole life, so when we talk of history, my wife and I, we always like, if we don't preserve our history, who does? Because it'll get lost. And so to me, it's kind of important that we don't forget that. I
think the Eastland Museum should certainly be involved too then.
right.
Exactly.
Because I'd love to see, they have a bunch of stuff that's on display, but it's all crammed into a shelter that nobody looks at. So finding ways to move that around to our parks would be a great way to make it more visible.
If I may, Blair, did we not have a discussion about, I'll just use this for the airport property down there.
Yeah.
And they're going to build another 50 homes in there. Can we not request, can we ask them to give us a piece of property and give them a break on what we were talking about before, and get a spot where we can put a park that would be a perfect place.
So anytime we talk to people about subdivisions or new developments, we try to bring up park amenities every time, because like, as we said, neighborhood parks are great. We want to add that amenity, and on the developer side, that makes it easier for them to sell homes. It makes for a really nice neighborhood to have that amenity there, and so we do bring that up. The problem is that a lot of times we have fairly small players that are not developing that many homes at a time. And it really hits them in the bottom line to be able to dedicate over the property. One of the things that I'd like to see more of is that a lot of those folks need to dedicate space for stormwater retention anyway. And so finding a way for open space and parks to co-locate with those things, perhaps they give a little bit more ground than they would for just their storm drainage, but they make a park out of it so that it has a natural dip or something like that, and is designed to flood during a rain event, but it's not going to harm anything because it's just park equipment or something like that. So I'd love to try to build off of that in those conversations, but we do try to have those conversations every time we have people coming to talk about development.
Yeah.
We also have a lot of developable land that still have wetlands and waterways on it, and a lot of the times we will also encourage them, because they can use a lot of that land for green space, park space. there's a lot more that can be approved on that when that type of thing. So we do encourage that to kind of mitigate some of that wetland area. And
Yeah.
so that's another place where we encourage that. And we do have a lot of space right now that people are looking at large developments that they would have to leave a lot of it green space.
And
So
along those same lines, one of the things I've talked with Greg and Public Works about when it comes to our stormwater master plan that was recently completed is as we're seeking more easements for handling stormwater, there are a lot of areas that have stormwater drainage on them that are on private property and the city doesn't have control over them. And we need to get more easements onto those properties to handle that storm drainage. But as we do, it'd be good to have an easement that is more than just a utility easement, but is also an access easement for a broader area. And that way we can utilize those things for public access for trails and such, and hopefully add those to our network.
I personally think that I don't live in Foster, but there's nowhere for them to go. The Foster School has got some stuff, but it's not like Sankey, which would be a big deal. But I think my personal opinion, and I don't go on this anymore, but I don't need one of those water things. But so if we were going to really get crazy about, not crazy, but if we're going to get really solid about what we should do, we've already decided we want to do Upper Sankey, which is a really good thing because of the thing. But Foster, I think is probably should be up there at the level.
Not to derail the conversation further, but I think there's a lot of opportunity in the Foster area with Andrew Wiley Park. And the trick is that it's not really designed to be accessible to the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting some pedestrian access into that park would be the low hanging fruit, because all you have to do is just make it available to those folks, and it's close enough that they could easily walk to it.
Where's it? What park?
Wiley Park at the base of the dam. The Army Corps
Foster
Park
Dam.
there.
Below the dam.
the boat
Below the
ramp,
da- below
it's
the
where the
dam.
boat
Below
ramp
that,
is
yeah.
that you go
Oh.
into the river down below
Okay.
the.
It's kind of an out of sight,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
out of sight,
Facility.
out of mind for a lot of folks,
but it's a pretty good piece of property down
it's
there.
got plenty of space and plenty of parking, and
Okay.
it's just one of those areas where if we could improve access to it, it's already there.
So is that our park?
It's the Army Corps
And they want us
that
to.
owns it. The county maintains it.
Okay.
But I think there's some good possibilities
It's a
for the
partnership
city
there. maybe.
partnering with them.
Yeah.
There's no access from the neighborhoods to it.
You have to
Walk.
drive along the dam and everything, and it's really, I think we need to look at improving access.
Maybe a
in there.
trail or.
I think some
okay.
trails and some, you might have to put a pedestrian bridge in or something like that, but that's cheaper than acquiring a whole other property.
One thing to feed back a little bit. I don't want to stretch this out too long, but Blair, talked about our museum, and when you think about a park system, you go to Bend and you think of the High Desert Museum, and that's basically to me a destination park information deal. So if you think about I talked to the park, not the museum board here, as Blair said, they're cramped in a little bitty stamp place. So it doesn't but I could see that being blossomed into a park themed system where there's the history and the heritage piece where people can come and visit, but it's also a recreational piece of a park that was developed that has the nature trails, the nature incorporated into it. That would be, to me, we talked years and years ago about a logging museum here in Sweet Home, and it just never come about, but there was a lot of logging companies interested in such a facility. But I could see, as you look at parks and possibilities, maybe that museum could be thought about somewhere. Can we plug it in here and looking at even a bigger picture of incorporating something developed that it becomes a multi-use? It's definitely a draw to Sweet Home. What makes our parks different than any other city? I guess that would be one way to look at it too. What makes us unique that they want to come to our parks versus someone else's parks?
Yeah, what you're speaking to is a common theme or goal in these park system plans, and that is community identity, and identity that ties to history and what the community is about, and we want the park system to have an identity, and it to be associated with the city of Sweet Home and There are various ways we can reinforce that identity through signage, similar equipment or structures or benches that are repeatable throughout the system that helps community sense of pride and belonging. And yeah, we can even tie that to history and museum. I can think of a park in, I think it's in Lowell. I don't know if anybody's been to that, but they have a park where they display logging equipment. It's kind of like a walking museum, and kids can even climb on some of the old logging equipment. But that's a good way in which they've tied their history as a community into the park system. So yeah, we are definitely interested in exploring potential for expanding the museum, how that fits into the park system. But we'll be promoting this concept of identity as we go through the planning process.
I think the idea of a walking museum is really cool to have. If you take that equipment, take those different display, and have a display at multiple parks that are all linked with trails, and with brochures and an app or whatever, you can have people guided through this process of history. It could be really cool.
Yeah, and when you're designing parks, and I mean you're wanting a park to be that awe factor, that special to someone. I mean, it creates that atmosphere and that environment you want to be in. I mean, I've been up the trails up by the mountain house where you cross the river, and it's just a trail, but it goes through the trees, it goes across a creek, it follows the river, but it's a healing piece. I think, like Samaritan, they do the healing gardens. And I know when my wife and I went through our cancer treatments, there was nothing more settling than just watching the koi swim by, and the whole setting. So when I think of parks, I almost think of them as like a healing garden in a sense. If we can create that.
I think you've done some of that already. If you look at that picture,
yeah.
How many parks have a covered bridge in them? Sankey Park is a bit of the roadmap for what we need to do, but there are maybe more pieces like the museum, history that we can tie into other parks as we design and develop them.
We have a couple more questions if we have time, or
I believe this is the only item on the agenda for today. So,
And we have until 9?
but
Or nine,
Or 10.
10.
10, sorry. What time it is, yeah.
9 year over.
Yeah. Okay, so
next slide, there may be some overlap on the next slide of what we've already discussed. Trying to think, if there's anything you want to elaborate or add to the outreach findings. We kind of have already talked about some of this. So maybe what's our last question on the following slide? So let's see. Oh, yeah, we could also talk about challenges or the previous question. Those last
Money, finding money,
funding.
Yeah.
funding,
Recommendations.
always.
So I had a fellow come from Eugene to talk to me and Wally about what we've talked here right now. And he was there for like, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes asking about what we need and what we've talked about right here, and we've talked about many times. Was he with your company or your business? I can't remember his name. I can get that. I think.
are you talking about the outreach call? Because I believe you were on the list.
Yeah, and we talked, and we talked about the exact same.
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
Oh,
You
were you on the phone?
Or we had a staff member interview.
Yes.
Yeah, that was
yeah.
Okay.
Victor
Yeah.
Garcia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's what it was.
Okay, yeah.
He did a really
Yes.
good job, and
Good
we
to hear that.
went through the same stuff that we've been talking about right here. And it's bottom line is the top one is money. It's money. Fortunately for us, we've got a good public works folks, and these guys have really done a really good job getting us money on grants. Really done a good job. I'm gonna get rid of this.
I think the money is certainly probably the biggest challenge. And then if there's one after that, because I think everybody likes parks, everybody wants these things to happen. I think the real challenge, if I had all the money in the world, the real challenge after that is simply cooperation with different property owners, because a lot of what we would like to have, if we're going to have, at least what's in my head, with additional parks and then a trails plan that connects them all together, inevitably there's going to be some people that don't necessarily want to live right next to that. Thinking mainly of the trails, unfortunately, in my experience so far in Sweet Home, there is a segment of the population that is resistant to the idea of public trails, and this idea that that'll bring people right next to my property, and they'll have negative impacts from that. And I think a lot of that is stemmed from the homelessness crisis. Certainly has had an effect in public areas. And so there's an attitude very much of, I don't want that right next to me. And so when it comes to developing our trails plan, I see that as a future challenge, and that's going to take a lot of public education, and it's going to take a lot of both assurances from the city, but also putting our people where our mouth is when it comes to ensuring that these spaces stay well maintained and protected and secure, so that people feel comfortable using them and being right next to them. Those are the main challenges I see. Are there any others that you guys think have been missed?
I want to expand on that. One of the challenges we see across the community is connectivity, access, and one of the previous slides mentioned barriers, and you have sort of an oval-shaped city with mountains on one side, river on the other, and then we have a major highway and railroad running down the middle of it. And you talked about cooperation with private landowners, but this is also going to involve cooperation with ODOT and cooperation with the railroad to get crossing so that we can help minimize those barriers. And then, yeah, we do need to develop a feasible trails plan that is able to connect all of these different residential neighborhoods with your centers of commerce and the river where people want to go, where people want to have access. So that's what we see as a challenge, is how do we do that, feasibly, and who do we partner with to make that happen?
Yeah, I agree. And on that note, it makes me think of the various creeks that we have that cross Highway 20, that cross the railroad, Ames Creek, Wiley Creek, especially.
Easements where we can get
easements along
access,
those,
and trails are common along natural resource corridors. Where we can use those for dual functions, access, and then after resource protection. That's great. Yeah,
I think Wiley Creek especially, there's a lot of potential there, because there's on the west side of Wiley Creek, there's a bunch of land that's owned by Samaritan that I think we could work with them on. And then south of Highway 20, there's some property that is owned by Mosaic Healthcare, which owns the assisted living and memory care, and they have expressed interest in a trail along Wiley Creek also. So there's certainly some potential. I'd like to see some more along Ames Creek, but unfortunately there's so much private property chopped up and that's all along Ames Creek, and it's going to be a challenge there.
And then there are more, sometimes there could be more funding sources for transportation related projects. Oregon has the Recreational Trails Program grant actually working in Harrisburg right now. They're going to be applying for a grant to do a trail system at their Eco Park, which is on the Willamette. But there's RTP grant program, there's Safe Routes to Schools, there's other federal and state funding we can look to for those types of projects where just park improvements don't fit. So I guess that's the positive, is that these can be transportation projects and there's maybe more funding available.
No, I think Larry, you hit it. I mean, the budget piece of it is a major one. The maintenance piece of it, the security piece of it, I mean, people feeling safe when they're in our parks, are they designed in such a manner that they're open and visible and our local law enforcement has access and can maintain the security piece of it as well. Tying them together, the trails. I mean, we've talked quite a bit in this, about different trail systems, tying them together. Hopefully we won't end up with a sidewalk that stops at a train trestle and doesn't connect to the other half. I mean, that was just it's what it is, but it's frustrating to see an access to our lake suddenly come to a stop.
I'm going to push that through.
Yeah,
Gonna
yeah,
happen at
but
some
like I
point.
said, it's those things like that pop up we don't expect, and there it was, and I go, wow, so, thank you.
So I'm not, just say it's irrelevant, Nancy, or whatever, if you want to. So does the population, I notice we have a lot of, the large is over 44 through over 65. And sometimes, I mean, I'm over 65, so.
The age group, I mean.
Yes, aren't you? Yeah. Anyway, did that have, sometimes, God bless the elderly and the retired, but sometimes I feel like they really don't want to put their money out anymore. They're settled in their house, their retirement. And so, I mean, that's kind of see where I'm going at that.
I think is the idea just like building community support and momentum behind projects. Well, the first one thing that comes to mind is that sometimes there is overlap in interest between different age groups. So like trails is such a huge one that we see where, parents and kids love them, but also there's something that everybody can use. So older adults, it's like the top thing we see aside from like observing wildlife and seeding and things like that, that they enjoy. So I think sometimes that kind of thing helps, if you have other champions in the community advocating for amenities that everyone can enjoy.
Well, I mean, I love the museum people, but, they're older. And I know, I mean, this is just throw this out. This year they can't afford putting lights in their park in the area. So, I mean, I'm thinking, we've got to be able to help that more. And if we want to use some of their equipment that they have there, I don't know. See where I'm going?
I think there's certainly room for cooperation with
Yeah.
those
We can help
groups.
somehow.
It's really every organization has something to offer,
Mm-hmm.
and so if the city were to step in and say, hey, we want to help you, because we already give them free water, frankly, for their for that area, because we care about what it looks like.
Yeah.
We want them to irrigate the grass. But I don't know that it's impossible. There's certainly some things that the city could do to step in and say, hey, we'll pay for this, or we'll make this improvement for you, but we want this in return.
Yeah.
And hopefully people see it that way as a give and take cooperation instead of the city telling them what to do.
That'd be good.
And one of the things I think too for a community kind of goes back down to the business owners, the stakeholders in our community, is getting behind park system and advocating. I mean, I've been to tourist destinations where the entire community is very well tuned in to what brings the dollars into their system. And I mean, you walk through that door and have you visited I mean, it's getting that community support and that dialogue, just kind of being on their plate all the time. That's, I think, is a challenge. Definitely, you want them to be your ambassadors for your entire park system, is getting them in the sense that, have you visited our park system? And they may be the dentist, but the dentist needs to be advocating the park system just like Samaritan would advocate their area. So I think that is a challenge, but I think it's doable through an educational process. I think, as we go forward with parks, I'm an advocate of town hall meetings. I'm working with Samaritan, doing some things for education next year and around the healthcare. I think that's an opportunity for selling our park systems. It doesn't have, you're not trying to capture an audience of 100 people, but if you're capturing an audience of 20 or 25, those 25 go out and they start talking. And so to me, that's an opportunity to explain these projects a little more than it is. It's like herding cats sometimes, trying to get them all at the same table. But I think we've got an opportunity around that. I think the other thing, the challenge too, is you'd mentioned earlier about our sign system. I always can't figure it out why when we drive through Main Street of Sweet Home, we don't have a sign that says where Northside Park is, where our parks are. It's I've said before, we need signs on our main drag because the tourist that's driving through drives through. They don't. And that the tourist piece is the other one that we need to tie in. Or do the tourists that are coming through our state understand where our parks are at?
Well, we've talked about that before, and I think, Blair, you would be more likely to say, but ODOT putting one on that road is somewhere. I don't know how far off the road you got to be before you can put a sign, but sometimes it's really difficult to deal with them. And you're absolutely right. Northside Park and 12th Avenue could be on the same sign.
Yep.
Could be on the same sign, with an arrow that way and an arrow the other way.
Sure.
So I don't know how we got to go around to get that done, but it would make a big difference. And we can put one on Long Street. We can make it go on Long Street.
I mean, that's one of the, when it comes to park improvements, that's one of the low hanging fruit. It's really not that difficult. ODOT is not that much of a barrier if you're putting in normal traffic rated signs. So I think it's just a matter of, I don't think that would be very difficult, and it'd be cheap.
Yeah, that's something we see a lot is many communities are looking to improve wayfinding, and there's, wayfinding plans are one way to do that so that you can kind of look at the entire city or area and how you would implement wayfinding signage, even if it's over time, phasing it in. And then, like you said, there are standards nationally for how you do that. And you can blend like some community identity elements like color, while still maintaining like standard, fonts and things like that so that they would, be approved and be able to be installed. Yeah.
And I think back to Blair's point a little bit, he just said low hanging fruit. As the parks plan is being developed, I think that's an opportunity for us as well as to what's our low hanging fruit in this parks master plan that we can go right after with very little investment or into it in time,
So you're suggesting that the recommendations have a prioritization list of that are, or a scale of here are the things that are a higher priority, but also easy and cheap to do.
I think that wouldn't be a bad thing for us as a parks board to look at and say, oh, that's low hanging fruit. But that one there, it's 5 years out, and we know we're going to have to do a lot more footwork to make that one happen.
And it doesn't mean you don't put the resources toward those higher things. But when you do those easy ones, it's like, well, it helps the organization because it's a quick win.
It's a quick win, and you pick up speed and energy from that,
And people notice it.
And people notice it.
Yeah, the horizon for this planning process is 20 years, but we'll be developing a capital improvement plan that is looks at 5 years, 10 years, and the longer 20 years, and we'll have prioritization and phasing. And typically in small communities, the emphasis is on maintaining and improving what you have, and you do have some undeveloped parkland, and Quarry Park is an amazing opportunity. And then the second part is acquisition and development of new parkland in areas that are growing. I want to start with something Nancy said, and commenting on the somewhat older demographic in the community, and the importance of this work, and ties into economic development and community development. And so it's our belief that if you want to sustain your community and sustain your community as a place for young families to grow up in, and to grow and to want to live in and want to be in and want to stay in, there are several ingredients you need. Jobs, you need good schools, you need to invest in your schools, and you need good parks and recreation facilities and places for youth and families and seniors when they're retiring to go. And so that, I think, underscores the importance of this project and making a Sweet Home a great community where people want to be, people want to stay.
And Nancy, just to comment on the 20 years out,
Yeah.
that's
You know how old I'm gonna be 20
that's the end of this planning. I mean, we need to think that far in advance, but that doesn't mean that all of the things that are in the plan are going to be that far out.
Right.
There's going to be a number of things that are sooner than that.
I just may be in a different park at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
That's all I can say.
trailer park.
They get sprayed in the mud and wash it.
Yeah.
Underground
Well,
park.
There's another park amenity we can think about. Yeah.
No, I heard you talking about it. We did a master plan for Lewis Creek Park a couple years ago for Wayne County, Foster Lake. So I'm interested in
Yeah.
water levels.
Take a drive through, and it's not the level that's the problem. It's
Okay.
it's the clarity
Look at
that's
it.
not there anymore.
Okay, we're getting kind of close towards the end of this hour. Did you have another question that you said you,
That
or
was it. Right?
I think that covered it. Between the entire discussion, we covered like
Yeah.
every question.
I mean, it could go on forever. It really could. Does anyone else have any other questions for them or before we round this up?
Hey, Deborah, you've been pretty quiet. Do you have any questions or comments that you'd like to get in? You're muted and your camera's off, so we can't see or hear you.
Well, hi there. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear
I can
you.
hear you.
Okay. Well, I've been here listening to the whole thing. The whole information.
Are there any questions that have come in your mind that you'd like to make sure are addressed?
No, I think Nancy covered a lot of the ones I had thought
Okay.
of, or a few that I thought of. I didn't think of very many, but been jogging my notes here.
All right. Just wanted to make sure you felt heard.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Blair.
We got everything. Okay, well, meeting adjourned.
All right,
Oh,
we're adjourned.
sorry.
Oh, wait.
Thank
Wait a minute, wait a minute.
Just a
Unadjourned.
reminder for our
Did
December.
we take roll call? I missed that.
We
We
did.
did.
That was when we couldn't hear you and you couldn't hear us.
Oh,
but,
okay.
we did reflect that you were here.
You were here.
Thank you.
Just for our December meeting, our Tree City USA app is going to be due. So Diane, maybe connect with Angela on, do you need anything from us to help with that?
Okay.
And then
We'll be in touch.
one of the items that I want to talk about is just some brainstorming for what our Arbor Day event is going to look like for 2024.
Yeah.
Where, what, when, just so we can.
Get it on the agenda.
Let's
Yeah.
put that on the agenda for the next meeting, I think.
So that's always helps to do pre-planning, and then we can plan.
Yes.
Just a couple of announcements for the group. Please tell everybody you know on November 29th here at 6:30. That's a Wednesday. We are having an open house for our transportation system plan update. And so if you care about transportation and being able to get around, please come to that and take a look
At
and
6:30?
make your voice heard at 6:30 here.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I've got is we do have a vacancy on the planning commission right now that is available to anybody who lives within the Sweet Home School District. So if you know anybody who's been wanting to be involved but lives outside of city limits, this is a good way for that to happen. And
Isn't that
and just
just-
refer them to me.
You meet once a year though, right?
Planning commission? No,
No, monthly.
no, monthly at least usually. It depends on how much
Oh, he's
business
on
they
the
have.
budget. That's right.
Yeah,
Never
no, this
mind.
is planning commission is
Just put
is
Dave
fairly
down on it.
often.
Are we having a meeting next month?
I believe so.
I'm sorry, thinking of a different
Yep.
city.
We'll call it over.
All right, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.